now talk about acceptable methods of injection for different kinds of systems. For hand line, wheel line, is that Venturi system going to work? You know, first of all, this suction mixing, that's unacceptable, simply because of the contamination potential of that type of system. And so any of those suction systems are not going to be usable for any system. But on a hand line, wheel line, we have a situation here where we will set that thing and let it run 12 hours, 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours. So we could use about any of the other methods, because we'll eventually evacuate everything out of the canister that we're trying to suck out liquid-wise. And so what if it takes 20 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour and a half to get all of the liquid out through the dilution process? We'll finally get all the chemical down the line. So in that type of a system, all of a sudden we can use about anything. And we can use an injection system with an injection pump. It would work fine. We could actually put it right out on the individual line. I've actually seen guys that have little wheelbarrows set up where they roll right out to at the beginning of the hand line, and they inject it right at the beginning of the hand line with the Venturi system. They have a little thing rigged up that they put in line and inject right at the main line to lateral connection. So any kind is going to work, because we have a real long period of time in which to inject the chemical. So all the methods that we've talked about would be usable. Sometimes we have to be concerned about whether or not we have power available. So all of a sudden, maybe an injection pump becomes a non-choice because there's no power accessible at the area we want to inject. So we have to go to one of the non-energy supplied methods. Solid set. Well, now we run into, again, a situation where we're running long time frames of irrigation. Generally speaking, we're going to run a block, you know, at least a couple of 3 hours whenever we turn it on. And so in most cases, we can use about any of the methods that we've talked about to do solid set. Turf, whoops, now we're getting into some more specialized situations. Now here we're getting into a system that we're watering very frequently in very short periods of time. So now all of a sudden this concept of the Venturi or pitot tube injection is probably not going to be very effective because of the lack of uniformity, because we're cycling so rapidly from one zone to another zone to another zone to another zone. Example around this building, we water the spray circuits around this building every day for about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. Well, in 10 or 15 minutes, can we get the amount of chemical we want into the line with a Venturi process or a pitot tube process? Probably not. Plus, it's going to be cycling, and the dilution rate keeps changing as the first cycle is going to get the most highest concentrated chemical, and the next cycle is going to be slightly more diluted, and so on, until we make the full loop around the building, and by the end we're not getting as much chemical per time as we did at the front end of the cycle. So we lose our overall uniformity of application. Now all of a sudden an injection system looks really good. And so on turf, it really would be positive to have a very positive displacement injection system. Now again, you have to be concerned about length of time. You have to know the length of your run cycle so that you get your full material injected within your run time. And you might have to come back around and run a flush cycle after the fact, because it is going to be some pretty short run time, and if we're injecting a chemical, we're not going to have any time for fresh water flush at the end of the injection time. So it might force us to come back and run another cycle for flush. And then we get into situations like on a golf course where, boy, we're hitting them real fast. 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes type of a thing. then we really have to have our inputs calibrated very, very carefully. And in fact, what often will happen is that we might have a continuous injection process going on a golf course.
In that situation, how would you get, if you've got like one main line, you've got so many different zones and stuff, how would you get the chemical to the furthest zone out?
Yeah, well, Chad brings up a very good question.